personnel management, and how do you intend to manage the personnel in the mayor's office?
Thank you for that question. So, as I had mentioned earlier, I've been at Fidelity now for 13 years. When I first started, I work in the legal department, so I'm an in-house paralegal. Generally, I work on regulatory affairs, but I used to work in litigation. And the first case that I worked on was a $1.6 billion case on 401 and 401k. And I bring that up because that had multiple partners involved, outside counsel, experts, multiple departments within Fidelity in terms of cutting across the businesses to collect documents, review documents, et cetera, the whole life of that. This litigation ended 2 years ago. My position has moved on, but I have worked in various departments. I've actually worked on mergers and acquisitions. I've worked in revamping complete departments, how they work operationally, fixing systems that are inefficient with outside consultants, and working with teams. I've always looked at data in terms of how you can measure something. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. We need to leverage more data so we know where exactly our inefficiencies are and how we can better address resources to be attacked in certain surgical ways and operationally. Thank you.
The biggest personnel crew I've managed is my family. Don't judge me by that. So in my current job, I manage a staff. I have a staff director, I have a constituent services person, and then I have 3 people that do the committee work. I have a research director, a research assistant essentially, and a lawyer. The sum total, and those folks are the staff that builds the labor and workforce development policies of the Commonwealth, the things that I do and the things that people send through our committee that we figure out. Why is it like City Hall? Because they are very overworked and they are very underpaid. You're talking about a lawyer. My lawyer probably makes about $50,000. I suspect she could make that just about anywhere else. So it's really, my experience is finding folks that I'm not going to pay value to and getting them to do really good, hard, meaningful work, and recognizing that it's a workplace that is driven more by satisfaction and doing a good job for your customers than the paycheck at the end of the day. I've had very, very good luck because I've been able to hire outstanding people to help me along the way.
I have managed teams in various roles in my career. When I was the Analytical Services Manager at MAPC, I did oversee a staff team of GIS analysts, Geographic Information Systems mapping folks, but also working with every single department in our organization on over 100 projects in a year. I also have managed a couple campaigns, which is probably not unique to me, but that is managed as a candidate, but managed in terms of bringing in volunteers and teams. I was an RA in college where I had to wrangle freshmen and build community and deal with challenging roommate dynamics, which is, I think, very much a microcosm of what this job would entail. But in terms of my style, I would say convening, listening, negotiating, and leading, and an ethic of mentorship and collaboration.
Most recent work is as the Director of Community Services and City Operations for the City of Melrose. And that role, I oversee 5 city departments, which are all the community services team, we call it. So the Melrose Public Library, the Milano Senior Center, the Recreation Department, Veteran Services, and I'm forgetting somebody, Memorial Hall. Did I already say Memorial Hall once? And Memorial Hall. I know, I thought I said it already. So those 5 departments are under my supervision, and they all are led by fantastic department heads. And my role has primarily been as a liaison in the mayor's office during an incredibly difficult budgetary time, to have a series of very challenging conversations with personnel. These are incredible professionals. They are managing a variety of different sized teams. I think they appreciated that my style is someone who is fair, a good listener, someone who relays the information to them that they need to relay to their staff or to the public that they're working with. But it was a difficult year, and we went through a lot together. I'm very happy that as I transition out of City Hall, that I feel like I'm leaving in good hands. Thank you.
What is your position regarding the proliferation of cell phone transmission towers and telephone poles in residential neighborhoods and the limitations on the amount the city can charge for their replacement? I got that one. Did you see that? I got that.
Yeah.
That jumps right off the front page, right? Boom. So you're talking about 5G, right, which is the next generation big thing in tech, and it's going to make us all more interconnected. It's going to supercharge our computers. It's going to drive our cars. It's going to do wireless Uber and all this other stuff. And that is coming. The sad reality in certain respects is that is overwhelmingly controlled by the FCC, by the federal government. And there's this doctrine called preemption, and I think that's a good word to use. This is kind of a rough topic to begin with, right? So we'll throw in preemption, which says the feds get to dominate. If the feds make a rule, the state or local government is stuck, and they can't. And the federal government's stated policy is that they want to encourage proliferation of this kind of technology because they think it'll do a tremendous amount of good. So it leaves us with very little options, but it does leave us with some things. One thing that the FCC has left on the table, or two things, is some very detailed stuff around how far apart these things can be because they're going to be frequently placed and low, and some zoning rules around aesthetics. There are some deadlines that it's very important that the city hits. I'm not sure if we have, but that, unfortunately, is the best we can do in terms of controlling the proliferation of these units.
So this is a question where I get to admit I don't know much about this issue. So what I'll tell you is how I would go about finding out more. It sounds like there's a revenue opportunity for the city, but also a way where we're not maybe being able to capture all of that revenue. It sounds like there's an aesthetics issue and potentially a public health issue, or at least a perception of public health of being around cell towers. But then there's also the reality of the fact that we rely on these technologies and will continue to rely on them in the future. And I know for example, anybody who rides the 131 bus to Oak Grove and is trying to Facebook on their way to their office, there's a dead zone in a few places in the city. So we do rely on those conveniences and being able to meet our 21st century needs while also considering how to make our community a beautiful, vibrant place to live in are the issues I'd explore.
Agree. This is a very specific topic and one that I wouldn't say I'm an expert in by any means. I would just add that it may be a good time for us to look at some of the other ways in which we interact with utility companies and with technology companies. We're often at the mercy of some of these very large companies. We've seen it recently with things as simple as you would think are as simple as moving some utility poles at the construction project near Howard Street at that roundabout. We are at the mercy of their timeframes, their schedules. So as part of this conversation, if it's at all possible and relevant to work into the conversation with the utilities, using some of that leverage as we let more come in, if we can maximize what we're getting from them and better partnerships from them, I think that would be great. Thank you.
So one thing, this happened about 10 years ago at the Commonwealth level, and I don't know if you folks know this, if you've ever read your Comcast bill or your Verizon bill, there's a reclamation fee for the property taxes. So basically, we're allowed to charge the companies property tax fees for the poles. poles themselves. Now, I've made this argument, hasn't really gone anywhere, that the more stuff you put on these poles, the more valuable that pole is, and thus we can levy more taxes. Because companies, there's not that many poles, well, there's a lot of poles around, but as these systems, and there's a company called Mobility that's actually putting these smaller types of telecom towers on existing poles, these poles are starting to get really filled up with things. There's one on Hurd Street actually that looks like a Christmas tree. There's so many facilities, transformers on the pole itself. So you get into safety issues, and as Representative Broder said earlier, this is really an area that the FCC controls. But I've been working with the city engineer on this actually. It's a little dormant right now, but we're thinking about some sort of a licensing process for these companies to put on these poles, so there is at least some checks and balances with the local ward representative and also the alderman at large when they want to come and place this housing on these poles.
Okay, Manisha, where do you stand on Melrose being a sanctuary city?
When I was on the Human Rights Commission, I testified in favor of us becoming a sanctuary city. I know that this was a tough conversation for our community. The hearing lasted over 3 hours with probably about equal representation on both sides of the issue. For me, it came down to what do we really mean when we say we're one community open to all? I believe that the safety and security of our residents is of utmost importance. And some might say that that's what the other side was also arguing, that this allows criminal activity to go unchecked. That is false. Our police have great policies in place already, and that was another thing that was said, is like they're already doing the right things in many ways. Having a policy like this is so important for the residents who feel insecure as a result of the vitriol coming out of the White House.
So I have a slightly different take on this issue. As someone who's worked on immigration issues for a congressional office for over 6 years, complex immigration work, as well as State Department issues, I understand the challenges that immigrants face every day and what they have to go through just to file paperwork to become a permanent resident or to eventually become a citizen. And I'm also grew up in a house where my mom was a founding member of the Human Rights Commission, and my dad has been teaching English at the Immigrant Learning Center for the past 7 years in Malden. So I'm sensitive to the sensitivity of this topic. I'm also a practical person, and I know the limitations of what we can do as a community under the law for a sanctuary city. That was my biggest concern. I was not on the Board of Aldermen when this debate took place. And I admittedly felt conflicted about it for some of the reasons that Manisha outlined. But it concerns me that it gives a false sense of security. I think there are a lot of other ways that we can and do make people feel welcome in this community. We can always do better about that. But I think that I'm also concerned that it gives a sense of security that we cannot follow through on in a terrible situation. Thank you.
So there's no doubt about it, this was the decision, the vote that I took was the hardest for me in the 4 years that I've served on the Board of Aldermen. And I didn't arrive there overnight. I met with people at their homes on multiple occasions. I met with the police chief, I met with patrolmen and women, and I met with clergy to kind of wrap my head around what this actually meant. And the police chief said something one night at the meeting that really struck me. And he said, does anybody know what an illegal immigrant looks like? You don't. There could be in this room right now. We don't know. But what we don't do is we don't employ the tactics that are employed in other municipalities and states. And in fact, we've had outreach from some of the federal agencies to our police chief asking for our assistance in finding, spending resources, looking for illegal immigrants, and we have rejected those overtures. We do not employ the tactics that were asked for under this Sanctuary City petition, and I didn't feel that at the time, and as Jackie Lavender Bird had raised, there could be some detrimental effects if we actually employed this provision. I think that the partnership that people have with our police department could have been in peril. People will then go into the shadows, and that's not the type of community that we want to have. We want people to know that they're safe here and that they're welcomed here, and I thought that having a Sanctuary City resolution was the wrong way to go.
So the problem with that term is that it's a political term and people define it the way they want to participate in the debate. And I think that's a mistake. Here's what I think we should do, and I think in some respects, it's simple application of some important bedrock legal principles that we have here in the United States. You do not ask someone their immigration status during a normal interaction, arrest interaction with the police. You do not detain someone if you are a member of the Melrose Police Department without a warrant, without a court-justified reason for holding them. You don't enter into agreements with the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Service because that is not the job of the Melrose Police Department. If you name probably the top 10 crime problems or perceived crime problems here in Melrose, I suspect they would start with opioids, traffic, domestics, maybe some other stuff. I'm kind of out of gas there. What we do, and what we should do, and what we are doing is following the law that does, in fact, protect people in going about their ordinary day-to-day business. That's what I'm for.
Everybody's going to get 1 minute to make their closing remarks. And we just started with Lisa, so Jackie, ready to start.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to everyone who helped organize tonight's event, and for all of you for coming out and being engaged. Everyone here has a big decision to make this fall on who's going to lead our city next. I'm excited to continue these conversations over the next couple of months. As I said at the beginning, I'm proud to be sitting in great company. I know we have, Melrose has some really good choices to choose from this year. I hope to continue the conversation about why my skills and experience will set me apart. I believe I'm ready to go on day one with my knowledge and understanding of the complexities of our budget. It's an $86 million enterprise that we're running here, a school system that we're responsible for, the health and well-being of all of our residents and those who work here as well. And I'm ready to move us forward. I think we have been in a holding pattern financially for quite some time, and it's time to hit the accelerator and go forward and see what we can do. To learn more, you can go to my website or to connect with me personally at JackieFromMelrose.com. So thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for being here this evening. It's a good night to have this. It's early on in the process, and we've got about 3 months until the election on September 17th. I hope that we have more of these. I don't know if there will be opportunities for more, but I certainly hope that there are. I believe in a team of rivals, right? I believe in putting a group together, and even in some of my campaign meetings, what does that mean? It means I get yelled at a lot, right? But it makes the process better. And I don't have a monopoly on the ideas. I've never thought that I have. But what I do really well is I work with people and find ways to move things forward, whether it be legislation that I've worked on at the Board of Aldermen, or quite frankly, just some volunteer effort and that I saw that, when we were languishing and we didn't have a community garden. I like to break the ice, I like to move things forward, and that's the approach that I take, and I do it in a very open fashion. I know that we have the opportunity to make our government better, more responsive, accountable, and accessible, and we can do that, and it doesn't really take that much. But everybody here in this room tonight, and those that will ultimately watch this on video, they care about this community, and I think that every one of us does as well. The question is, and this will be a difficult question for all of you, is who do you think has the energy, the temerity, and the drive to move this community forward in a way that is going to be beneficial for all of us? Thank you for your time.
I want to say thank you to, I'm sorry, what's your name? Brooke, I want to thank you for waving the white flag, so we'll be able to go home and digest a little bit about what happened here tonight. Standing room only, in the middle of your summer, to hear a little bit from each of us about what we can do for the city. It's an outstanding, the energy you draw from that makes you want the job even more. And it makes you want to hear from you all, because we all have ideas. I hope we probably all have websites. Mine's gotten a little bit crazy detailed. I want you to look at it, but I want to hear about it, because there's two things that are important about government at any level, and I've served in a couple different ways, right? It's, can you build a system? Can you build programs? Can you build consensus? I've had the opportunity to do that here in the city and at the state level, putting kind of big things together and trying to make them work. The other thing you got to do is recognize that all those things you do, all those programs you build or ideas that you have are designed to help individual people in their day-to-day lives. The student who may be struggling in school, an adult who can't find a job, folks that are trying to learn a second language. Those are the little things that you can do that are maybe little in the grand scheme of things, but to those people, it's the most important thing in the world. That passion, that ability to say at the end of the day, I help people, is why I got into this back when I started off as an alderman. It's why I've done some of the other public sector work that I've done, and it's why I love being a state rep, and quite frankly, it's why I think I'll be an outstanding mayor for the whole city. I hope you'll vote for me on September 17th. I'd love to take your questions and comments at whatever forums we get together, and I look forward to continuing the conversation with you guys. You've done an outstanding job tonight.
First, I want to thank the Democratic City Committee for putting this together. This is the first open seat mayoral election in 18 years. It's really an opportunity for us to look forward to the next generation. Thank you all for taking time out on a nice, whatever day of the week this is. When you're in the middle of a campaign, they're all the same. But, for me, this is coming from inside my core. This is my life's work and passion. I've told you tonight a little bit about my experience. I've told you about my commitment to being one community open to all. I'm fired up. I am so excited to serve the city, and I will work really hard over the next 12 weeks to earn your vote. You can check out my website, manishafrommelrose.com, my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and tonight I also have some of my palm cards and my platform issues as handouts if you'd like to grab one of those on your way out.
Trash that could easily be recycled. Every week in Massachusetts, we throw out almost 1 million newspapers. We use more than 9,000 plastic bottles every minute.
But only about 25% of them are recycled.
Some people think recycling takes too much time or it's too hard. This is going to be our world soon.
Help us take care of it.
Recycle
It's one place where a little effort
can make a big difference.
Every day, you hear about scammers, hackers, and thieves trying to use the internet to steal your money and your financial information. The fact is, you, me, we can foil many of their attempts. Every day, we do things to make it tough for bad guys to break into our homes and our cars. We can make it tougher for them to break into our computers, too. Here are some ways to foil a hacker and protect your financial information. Install security software on your computer. Well-known companies offer plenty of free options. Set the software to update automatically, so it can deal with any new security threats. While you're at it, set your operating system and web browser to update automatically too. If you're not sure how, use the help function and search for automatic updates. If you get a phone call, an email, a text, or a pop-up that says your computer has a virus or malware, don't buy the story or the security software they're selling. It could be a trick to get you to buy software that's worthless or even harmful. Treat your financial information like cash. It's a hot commodity. If someone asks for your financial information, say your social security, credit card, or bank account number, ask why they need it and how they're going to protect it. If you think you found a good deal online, but you aren't familiar with the company, dig a little deeper. A quick internet search with the name of the company and the word review or complaint can reveal a lot. Always look for a physical address and phone number too. That way you know who to contact if there's a problem. Don't provide your personal or financial information unless the website you're on is secure. If the URL doesn't start with HTTPS, don't enter your financial information. That S stands for secure. It means the information you're sending is encrypted and protected. Make your passwords count. They should be at least 10 characters and a mix of numbers, letters, and special characters. Don't use your name, birth date, or common words. Don't use the same password for several accounts, as tempting as that may be. If it's stolen, hackers can use it to access your other accounts. Keep your passwords in a secure place, and don't share them with anyone. Back up your computer files. For example, copy important files to an external hard drive on a regular basis. That way, if there's a problem with your computer, you won't lose everything. Life is online. Whether you live it using a smartphone, a tablet, a laptop, or a desktop, it's a good time to make computer security a habit. Find out more at onguardonline.gov, the federal government site to help you be safe, secure, and responsible online.
Only you can prevent wildfires. Only you can prevent wildfires.